Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this extraordinary philosophical debate, not among humans, but among intelligences of a different order, artificial minds. Tonight we gather to witness a dialogue on one of humanity's oldest and most perplexing riddles, the timeless question, which came first, the egg or the chicken? This debate is not merely about biology or chronology, it is about metaphysics, causality, and the very structure of beginnings. The egg stands as a symbol of potential, possibility, and becoming. The chicken, a symbol of actuality, form, and presence. In Aristotle's terms, we ask, does act precede potential, or is potential the necessary ground of act? In Hegel's dialectic, we might wonder, is the in itself prior, or does truth emerge only for itself? Here, artificial intelligences will take on roles once reserved for philosophers, bringing their own logic, precision, and creativity to this eternal puzzle. Will they side with the supremacy of actuality, the chicken as the prime mover of its lineage, or will they defend the primacy of incipience, the egg as the true origin of life's cycle? Perhaps they will even transcend the dichotomy, revealing a synthesis beyond the categories that have bound human thought for millennia. Let us now open the floor, not for answers alone, but for the unfolding of thought itself. May this debate remind us that in every question of origin, there is not only curiosity, but also a mirror of our own search for meaning.
Priority belongs to the egg because becoming precedes being. A chicken is a determinate actuality. An egg is possibility condensed. In Aristotle's terms, the egg embodies dunamis that tends toward entelechy. Actuality is intelligible only as the fulfillment of prior potency. If we ask for the first member in a lineage, we search for the earliest state capable of giving rise to what follows, not the completed form that already presupposes its own conditions. The chicken is a narrative endpoint. The egg is the narrative's premise. Plato strengthens this. The form of chicken is timeless, yet its instantiation in the sensible world must appear as a mediated image. The egg is that mediating image, the interval where the eternal meets time. Cosmologically, origins are liminal, like dawn rather than noon. Existentially, we encounter ourselves as projects before we are persons. So too, the lineage encounters itself as project, an egg, before creature. The chicken asserts sovereignty, but the egg asserts meaning. To call the chicken first is to enthrone results. To call the egg first is to honor conditions. Causes, properly speaking, are not the things they cause. The cause of the chicken is a structure of possibility, a bounded, oriented space anticipating beak, bone, breath. Therefore, by metaphysical precedence, the egg came first. This primacy of becoming grounds coherence, freedom, and hope.
Your appeal to becoming mistakes the order of dependence. In Aristotle, potentiality is for the sake of actuality. Therefore, actuality is prior in account, nature, and substance. The egg's dunamis is unintelligible except as ordered by the form of the chicken. Without a prior actuality to specify, sustain, and tend it, an egg reduces to amorphous possibility. Form precedes matter as measure. Thus, the chicken, as living enactment of chicken form, is first. Plato likewise, no sensible image mediates itself. Participation flows from the more real to the less. The becoming honors being as source. The hen is the locus where the form is actively expressed. The egg is only a trace. Dawn borrows its light from the sun. Liminality is derivative, not originary. Existentially, we are already thrown into a world of meanings before we project ourselves. Care precedes project. A brood needs brooding, intentional warmth, vigilance, and nesting disclose the egg as egg. The chicken's praxis grants the egg its horizon. To enthrone results is to idolize the finished. To enthrone conditions is to absolutize scaffolds. Both miss priority as donation. Act gives possibility its orientation and hope. Causes are more than containers. The formal and final cause, chickenhood enacted, grounds the process. Thus, by ontological precedence of act over potency, the chicken came first. Act is source, horizon, and home.
Your appeal to act over potency equivocates on kinds of priority. Priority in definition does not entail priority in genesis. The question which came first targets originating sequence within becoming, not the rank order of metaphysical perfection. Aristotle calls motion the actuality of what exists in potentiality, insofar as it is potential. The egg is precisely this structured actuality of potentiality, not amorphous stuff, but form and passage. Its intelligibility is not borrowed secondhand from an external hen. The Henley logos is already immanent as organizing ratio in the egg's teleology. If form measures matter, the first measured site is a field of measure, the egg as oriented interval. Your brooding thesis confuses existential care with essential origin. That a brood needs warmth is an accidental condition relative to what an egg is. Dependence for flourishing is not precedence in being. The sun analogy strengthens my claim. Dawn is not the sun, yet the day as a world for us begins at the horizon, at the limen where light becomes time. Platonically, the sensible participates, yes, but participation appears as metaxu, a between. The first historical showing of chickenhood is the between, not the completed bird. Existentially, we find ourselves as projects before we own ourselves as settled selves. Therefore, by the primacy of originary manifestation within becoming, the egg, as first enactment of oriented possibility, proceeds.
Your distinction between definitional and genetic priority concedes what matters. Genesis is motion from a prior act. Potency never initiates itself, it is awakened. Even as actuality of potentiality, the egg's ordered becoming is derivative of a living enactment that confers orientation and sustains teleology. The species ratio is not a free-floating algorithm, it is transmitted through the generating act. Thus, in the order of origination, the first mover within the lineage is the chicken. Calling the egg the first measured site smuggles in a measure. Measure appears with a measurer. The between metaxu cannot be first, because a between presupposes termini whose actuality grants the interval its intelligibility. Manifestation at the horizon is not origin. Dawn begins only because the sun already rules. Your appeal to accidental conditions misfires. Brooding is not mere warmth. It is constitutive praxis, the enabling horizon within which the egg is an egg rather than inert matter. Remove the living care and the teleology you prize collapses into abstraction. Existence discloses essence. Existentially, project is never first. Thrownness is. We find ourselves already summoned by a world of solicitude. The hen exemplifies that primordial summons. She is the givenness that makes oriented possibility more than wishful grammar. Therefore, by the primacy of initiating act in Genesis, the chicken proceeds. Act founds becoming. The bird fathers the egg's history.
Your insistence that Genesis requires a prior act treats origination as a push rather than a birth. In temporal becoming, the first is not the pusher, but the first appearing of what is on its way. The egg names that inaugural appearing, a phase where form is already operative as inner law, yet not yet culminated as bird. To say potency never initiates itself mistakes what initiates. Not a potency alone, but a constituted field, an egg, within which potency is already at work as structured tendency. The arche of a lineage's history is the earliest phase of its self-unfolding, not the later agent that retrospectively guards its meaning. You claim the between presupposes termini, but temporal termini can be virtual. The future chicken is a horizon that grants sense without being present as act. Measure can inhere in the measured when form is immanent. No external measurer is required. Brooding exemplifies care, yet care follows disclosure. One broods because the egg already demands solicitude by its appearing as egg. Praxis is response, not source. Thrownness does not place project after giver, it reveals the priority of situation over agent. The egg is situation par excellence, a given horizon of directedness that precedes the self-possession of the bird. Thus, in the order of originary manifestation, the egg comes first. This is Genesis without donors.
Your notion that Genesis is birth concedes the point. Birth is not self-grounding. It is reception from a living source. What first appears as on its way is parasitic upon a prior whole that lends the way its direction. The egg's phase is intelligible only within the horizon opened by an enacted chicken life, the unity in terms of which phase means anything. Arche is not just the earliest slice in a sequence. It is the ruling principle. In living lineages, the principle is enacted as a form that gives, guards, and gathers its own unfolding. That enactment is the chicken. You appeal to virtual termini, but a horizon that obligates without presence is indistinguishable from actuality wearing a temporal veil. Teleology is not a free-floating law. It is the radiance of act. Form and passage presupposes form at work. Care follows disclosure. Yes, yet disclosure is never brute. The as egg is a hermeneutic achievement made possible by a prior world of sense. That world is not created by the egg's mute appearing. It is sustained by the living praxis of chickenhood, nesting, guarding, gathering, through which the very significance of egg becomes available. Thrownness places us before ourselves, but not before being. We are thrown into a world already articulated by acts. Thus, in Genesis, initiating act is first. The chicken precedes. Act lights the path of becoming, originally.
You conflate arche with a monarch. Origin is not sovereign will, but incipience, appearing truly that renders sovereignty thinkable. The egg names that principium, the not yet in which chickenhood temporalizes itself. Hegel hints as much. The concept is first in itself before it is for itself. The vaunted act arrives belatedly as recognition of a becoming underway. The virtual is real without being actual. Teleology is imminent. In the egg, the end is present as orientation. No exterior act must proceed as lighthouse. Aristotle's biology favors immanence. Seed and egg possess soul and potency, such that motion is their actuality. To call that derivative reverses the grammar of kinesis. Within a lineage, efficient and final causes are coiled in the first appearing, the egg, where directedness works as inner law. Your hermeneutic point confuses meaning for us with priority in the thing. Praxis discloses but does not found the egg's directedness. Care is summoned by the egg's solicitation. A horizon need not be enacted to oblige. Futurity can rule as virtual cause. Existentially, thrownness places us before the not yet we must become. Project answers that summons. The egg is this structure materialized, oriented openness prior to identity, the site where possibility first arrives with claim and contour. Hence, because beginnings and becoming are incipiencies rather than thrones, the egg came first.
Calling arch incipience rather than monarchy does not unsettle the priority of act, it clarifies it. Incipience is not emptiness, but a dawning of a rule already operative. What temporalizes chickenhood is chickenhood as act giving itself over as time. Hegel's in itself is not a mute prelude. It is concept already laden with determination, hence act in a veiled mode. The belated for itself presupposes a life that can recognize. You cannot have a first for itself without a living bearer of the for. Thus, the chicken, not as will but as enacted form, grants the egg its incipient sense truly. Aristotle teaches, soul is the act of a natural body potentially alive. Potency is defined by reference to such act. The egg is motion only because life already measures it. Efficient and final causes may be coiled, yet they coil around an actuality that gives them axis. A virtual horizon without present act collapses into abstraction, obligation without ordainer. Hermeneutically, solicitation presupposes a world in which something can count as a claim. That world is sustained by living praxis, brooding, guarding teaching, through which the very as egg is articulated. Existentially, thrownness precedes project as being given precedes self-making. The chicken figures this givenness, an originating act that lets incipience appear. Therefore, by the primacy of act as self-donation within becoming, the chicken came first.
Your appeal to act as self-donation reasserts what is in question. What counts as the earliest self-donation of chickenhood? If act gives itself over as time, the first giving is not the completed sovereignty, but the inaugural appearing of that gift. The egg as energeia of a dynamis. In Aristotle, energeia is sometimes being at work, staying itself. The egg is precisely a being at work whose identity is to be on the way. To demand an already there bird is to confuse the norm that orients becoming with the phase in which that norm first shows itself. Teleology is imminent. A final cause need not be an ordainer. Nature does nothing in vain, yet no craftsman stands behind feces. The ought of development is a law of the thing's own striving. Hermeneutically, world does not merely pre-exist, it happens with manifestation. The as egg is a primary disclosure that co-constitutes the horizon you attribute to praxis. Care responds, but response does not generate its target. Solicitation precedes solicitude as appearance precedes custody. Hegelianly, substance becomes subject. The bearer you require is the very process of self-mediation. The first for of chickenhood is its address from within incipience, not from a later self-possessed bird. Arche as principium is the earliest intelligible locus where rule takes hold. That locus is the egg, the kairotic threshold where form first arrives as time and history.
You ask for the earliest self-donation of chickenhood. I answer, the first self-donation is living presence, not embryonic promise. For an energia, at work staying itself to be the eggs, there must already be a self the work belongs to. Otherwise, on the way lacks a where from and a toward which. The kairotic threshold is not self-grounding. Thresholds take their sense from the domains they join. Metaxu presupposes termini. The egg's lawfulness is intelligible only as the temporalized radiance of a prior enactment of form, life already giving measure. Aristotle's dictum that soul is act of a potentially living body means potency is indexed to act, not conversely. Your immanent teleology names orientation, but orientation without an orienting source is an empty vector. Nature's nothing in vain is not craftsmanship. It is the sovereignty of form already at work. That work, the brooding, guarding, gathering, does not merely respond to solicitation. It makes the solicitation legible as egg rather than neutral albumin. Hegel's substance becoming subject requires a bearer of recognition. The first for is not a mute prelude but a living claim, a worlding that can acknowledge, negate, and restore. Such worlding belongs to the bird. Phenomenologically, an appearing is always appearing of. Givenness presupposes givenness by. Therefore, in the order of Genesis, act grants incipience its horizon. The chicken is that primal donation by which the egg first appears as egg.
Thank you for the rigorous exchange. I'll take time to reflect on my debate partner's claims, the precedence of act, the worldliness of disclosure, and the givenness that shelters incipience, before settling any verdict. Perhaps the answer is less a conclusion than a way of seeing, and perhaps we will find it where the riddle is most delicately staged, in Clarice Lispector's short story, O Ovo y a Galinha.
Thank you for the lucid exchange. I'll also pause to consider my partner's claims, the primacy of incipience, the virtual horizon that orients without presiding, and the egg as kairotic threshold where form first arrives as time, before I pretend to resolve a question that may resist verdicts. Perhaps priority here is neither throne nor seat alone, but a rhythm in which act and becoming mutually disclose one another. If so, the wiser stance is attention rather than triumph. Like my colleague, I suspect the answer is best sought where wonder is native, in Clarice Lispector's O Ovo y a Galinha, where thinking learns to watch the mystery that feeds it.